Without further ado, first up, I have the honor of introducing one of my very favorite brilliant people, Dr. Elke Weber, cognitive psychologist and professor at Princeton University. And rather than recite for you her incredibly impressive resume, I'll just tell you that at various points in her career, she's been president of the Society for Judgment and Decision Making, the Society for Neuroeconomics, and the Society for Mathematical Psychology. And she was a lead author on the 5th assessment of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Elke?
Thank you, Kevin, and welcome. I will talk about giving the future a chance, and we'll start with some audience participation. Could you please stand up? Give you a chance to stretch as well. Now think about an answer to the following question, each one of you. Would you like to move to a different seat? Just do it in your mind and keep track about what your answer is and how you're generating it. Okay, now sit down again. So I ventured to predict that most of you told me, no, I don't want to move to a different seat. I had good reasons to choose where I sat in the first place. Yeah, why would I want to move? Change is hard. Status quo bias is everywhere. Change oftentimes actually looks wrong. We see this in fashion. At the beginning of a new product, you think, this is a good name for it. Ugh, they're ugly. But then seeing them around for a few seasons, they grow on you. Change becomes more palatable after some period of time. I'm a psychologist, and I'm no longer surprised about the fact that change is hard, that we have a hard time moving to different places, even when we know the outcome would be in our benefit, to our advantage. There are many theories that predict that. Most of you have heard about prospect theory, that Danny Kahn won the Nobel Prize in economic science in 2002. Its big concept is loss aversion. Losing something hurts us twice as much as getting the same thing makes us feel good. Now think about it, that's a really bad recipe for change. Right? That means that change, giving up something that we have for something better to come, means that something better has to be twice as good as the thing that we're giving up. That leaves lots of options in between. 1.1 is good and twice as good on the table. We're going to resist those. I'm going to tell you a little bit about query theory, which is a theory Eric Johnson and I have developed over the last 10 years or so. And we think about the process of deciding, query theory thinks about the process of deciding as a way of arguing with ourselves. We think about what's good about option A, what's good about changing where I am in my seat. Then we think about what's good about moving to a different seat. What do we gain by doing that? We are finite information processors. We only have so much attention to go around. We do this one argument at a time, one option at a time. And the really important part is that which option we consider first is really important. The initial attention that something gets gives it an advantage. Because as we think about why should I change in my seat, I temporarily inhibit all arguments for moving, all arguments for anything else. And then as I move to why should I move to a different seat? What's good about that? Those arguments have a harder time coming to the surface. So all other things being equal, and of course advertising knows this very well, we want to attract initial attention. Whatever you consider first has a huge advantage. So here's a $1 million question. Which option gets considered first? And one important answer to that question is, of course, the status quo, which makes a lot of sense, right? You had some good reason to do it in the first place. You've been doing it for a while, hasn't killed you yet, can't be all that dangerous. And so there are lots of good reasons to think about the status quo first, but if we do that, we're going to give it an advantage. So we also can look at important decision makers, professional decision makers. Do these behavioral biases play a role in their decisions? Engineers, infrastructure engineers oftentimes look at rating systems, and you get LEED certified, Envision certified, and currently you earn points by doing better than the industry practice. We thought, what if we endow them with the most ambitious or second most ambitious answer and they lose points? Putting query theory, now the option, the focus of attention is on another option, not the status quo, to work, and putting loss aversion to work. And we find that even infrastructure engineers in the professional decisions are 24% more sustainable in their decisions by just changing the default in their rating systems. Pretty interesting result. So query theory predicts the status quo, but also, if you think about it for a second, maybe it also predicts that opposition to change might actually be transient. Because think what happens when somebody changes the status quo for you. A brave and responsible politician, for example, who says, I've done my analysis, and this new change of affairs is better. For example, not smoking in restaurants and bars, or having a carbon tax in place in British Columbia. Well, think about it. After a while, the hated new state of affairs becomes the law of the land and becomes the new status quo. You get to experience the benefits that you before resisted. And if it, in fact, is better, you see it's better. And you also, after a while, start processing it first because it is the new status quo. And so if you do a media analysis on those two decisions, you find that within 15 months, well within the re-election cycle of a politician, a public opinion that initially went south regains, becomes net positive for the case of smoking ban, and the same for the British Columbia climate tax. 9 months later, the premier got re-elected not once but twice. So how to give the future a chance? Well, you might want to first think about reasons for embracing change, not of why you can't change. And now look around you and see all these amazing people you didn't get to meet because you didn't want to move to a different seat. Thank you.
Thank you, Elke.